Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Alpenglow Industries Solder Sesh. My special guest this week is Elecia White. I'm really excited to have her on. Yay! Elecia is an embedded programmer. She has a consulting company called Logical Elegance. She has a podcast called Embedded.fm. She has written a book called Making Embedded Systems, and she has even taught a class on embedded systems on ClassBert. And Elecia, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. I have had the pleasure of being on your podcast twice. Thank you so much, and I'm happy that I can return it. So,
cool.
Yeah. So first off, I would love to hear your superhero origin story. So you're a superhero of embedded programming and you have skills and you can shoot fireballs of code from your hands or whatever. How did you develop those skills? How did you first get involved in STEM and figure out that programming was super cool and something that you love to do? But specifically embedded programming, because embedded programming means that you're making hardware do stuff, which I particularly find interesting. So yeah.
That was, if there was a pinpoint origin story, it was the first time that I had a motor move on my desk with my software controlling it.
Yes.
And I don't know if everybody has used the motors where you can barely see the spindle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a Barbie doll head sitting on the spindle. And so Barbie was spinning around because I had typed in commands, and that was my origin story. That's really where it started.
So basically you made an exorcist Barbie, and you were hooked. You were like, yes.
But to be fair, I had been a software engineer at HP. I had moved over to HP Labs, and my boss knew I was an embedded engineer, but all I knew was that I was going to write software.
Mm.
And so it was just a matter of, he told me what, we need to control this. And I somehow already knew, I knew a lot of the motor stuff from college,
mm-hmm.
but actually putting the software in, I had never done that. I didn't do robotics in college or anything.
Yeah.
And so that was the point. But I had a degree in engineering CS from Harvey Mudd, like you.
Mm-hmm.
But where did I get interested in STEM? In high school, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a high school that was very large and very few of the people went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not a great high school.
Was that here in California or was that somewhere else?
Here in California, Colton High.
Okay.
Near San Bernardino High, which...
Okay. So Mudd was almost local for you then.
It was. It was about 45 minutes to get home, which
cool.
I never did, not even on Christmas vacation. I would just stay in the dorms.
That's great.
So in high school, I liked history. I liked writing.
Mm-hmm.
I liked biology. I didn't have a lot of programming experience. In elementary school, there were the computers in libraries on the tape decks and you typed in things. Mm-hmm. I did that, but it was just there. And when I was accepted into Mudd, which by the way, was the only college I applied to, which was, now that I look back, the dumbest thing I have ever done.
Did you do early decision or?
Yes, I did do early decision.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because, you were committed at that point, right? And then you had time if Mudd deferred or said no a little bit.
Yeah. But I did go to a terrible high school. So it was, and Mudd knew that I went to a terrible high school. So they had me go to this bridge program where I got more calculus, and there was a CS class. The thing was, the CS class was the easiest thing I had ever done. I was struggling over, in high school, I had taken calculus, but when I got to Mudd, it was what is this S shape? What does that do? We had only had derivatives.
Yeah.
So I was in math going, what's happening? I thought I took this class and it's terrible. And then we had the CS class and I'm like, okay, this is how my brain works. It's
cool.
You do this and then this and then that. So CS just was like, there were a lot of things I did not do well at Mud in, but CS was always like kind of the easy class because it was just my brain. And then we got into systems engineering, which is a second year class at Mud, and most people hate it. I loved Fourier, like kind of like how computers worked. Fourier made the world make more sense.
Nice.
It was the patterns, the spinning, the sine waves, they just all were how my brain really worked. And it felt more like home. So between that, I did all of the theoretical engineering classes and all of the applied CS classes. And
interesting. Huh.
Made my own degree from those. Couple credits off a double major, but made my own degrees from those. And then at the same time, I minored in or concentrated in theories of learning because I got really interested in intelligent tutoring systems.
Oh.
And did my senior project on making Zork, the game engine, teach physics.
Whoa.
And it had different ways. Like if you couldn't throw the coconut, if you couldn't throw the rock to get the coconut out of the tree, it would give you different hints. And then the next time you needed a hint, it would give you that kind of hint. It was really, really cool. And I had so much fun making it. So then I went to HP because good place. And then John Sadler hired me over in labs to do embedded systems because I kept getting closer and closer to the hardware and I liked it.
Now, what did you think of electrical engineering in college?
Oh, it was fine as long as, we were doing systems engineering. As long as there was a resistor instead of friction or instead of a spring. I mean, as far as the systems part, sure, no problem. You want to know what the frequency response of that circuit is? You want to talk about how antennas work? Sure, no problem. That was granddaddy STEM, so it's totally fun. But putting together a circuit, I wasn't the sort of kid who took things apart. I was a reader, not an experimenter. People say like, oh yeah, my mom would know I would be an engineer from get-go because I took apart all my toys. Didn't occur to me to take apart a toy.
Yeah, same. I was not a taker aparter either. There's also like a scarcity of stuff because I grew up on an island. So having electronic toys was a really like that was unusual. And so, yeah, if I had stuff and it worked, I did not want to take apart and risk that it would not work.
Exactly.
There just wasn't a lot of help for that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I didn't live on an island, but there was a scarcity of stuff I could break.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. So it sounds like you kind of found your way in college in terms of what you liked and what you didn't like and what was easy for you, what was harder. It's so interesting to me and weird that most colleges like make you pick a major and apply to that major from the get-go. And I can't imagine. I did a similar thing where I kind of I dated several subjects first to see if we got along or not. And engineering was the last one. And fortunately, it worked out because I was getting a little bit nervous by then. At first, I thought like, oh, maybe chemistry or physics, but I'd never taken an engineering class. And I was like, yeah, well, maybe engineering. I mean, I like doing stuff with my hands. So that sounds cool. But yeah, I had never taken an engineering class. And so when we did STEMs, I really liked it. It clicked more than anything else did.
It was one of those classes that like a good 3/4 of the people hated.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely, why are we doing this? It's awful. I hate it. And then there were those of us who were like, no, these are the secrets.
Yeah.
To hell with actually, geometries in physics. This is cool stuff.
Yeah, I felt like when I learned math and engineering, suddenly math made more sense. Suddenly
Yes.
calculus made a lot more sense. I was
Yes.
like, oh, because I can actually see how it works in the system. And now I understand more about like why a spring might resonate and why that might be similar to an electrical circuit resonating. And yeah, things like that. I definitely had that too. Yeah, I can't imagine if I had to pick a major from the get-go, it would have been terrible. I would have changed several times and yeah.
Well, doing applied CS and theoretical engineering meant that I was completely geared to do signal processing and motor control.
Nice. Yeah.
I mean, it was just I knew how to put PID loops
Mhm.
into code, and then I knew how to tune them, and that was not a skill that was widespread. And
Yeah.
signal processing, audio processing, and data processing. Oh, sure, we're just going to slap some low pass filters on that. Oh, we need a notch. Yeah, we'll do that in software. And it worked for me. But when people
Cool.
say, "Well, what should I take in college?" I'm like, I don't know, but join the robotics class because that's something I wish I had had.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a robotics clinic. Like that was the first year that there was any sort of robotics thing was I think our it was either our junior or our senior. I think it was our senior year actually. So maybe I think I was 2 years behind you. So yeah, and I did apply for that clinic and I did not get it. And I was sad to not get it, but I had a great time learning about microfluidics. So that was a cool clinic project.
That's another thing that you get out of school and nobody knows that, but it's a big field, especially with all the DNA stuff and the sampling of water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
use any of that anymore?
No, I didn't use any of the microfluidics at all. Um, but it's interesting. Occasionally, like I'll catch something in the news and be like, "Oh yeah, we were kind of using that technique in our clinic class." We were doing stuff with ultra laminar flow. So we were basically looking at ways of being able to like take a blood sample and take this sample of blood that had all of these different fluorescent markers in it because it had been mixed up with them and they were trying to identify just certain things in the blood. And so the idea was, but the detection point was very, very small, and you wanted to kind of like funnel these markers down so that only like one of them would go by the detector at a time. And how to do that on a really small scale, like a mechanical funnel is just going to clog, basically. And so we were using other fluid, basically water, coming in at different angles in order to create a funnel, in order to narrow this stream, because you can do weird stuff like that when you have incredibly small, ultra laminar flow channels. So yeah, we like did a few different ones at different angles to figure out like how you would get like the best kind of narrowing and be able to detect these markers. So yeah, still waiting for the magical blood test, but
Yes.
yeah, yeah. But no, that was cool. Well, cool. So when you graduated, you went directly to work for HP.
I went to work for HP the junior year summer, and then I never stopped working for them. I worked
Okay.
through the school year because companies pay a lot more than student work.
They do. I'm impressed though that with an almost double major that you also managed to do some serious work all the while it being your senior year. Now, did you do a thesis or a clinic your senior year?
Some of everything. Can't just do one thing.
Yeah, gotta have choices.
Well, it didn't work that much because it paid so much more than the student work did.
Yeah.
And it was stuff like installers, which
Mm.
they didn't require a lot of week-to-week knowledge. So if I had a heavy week, it didn't matter if I didn't get things done.
Nice.
My boss was really cool. And then I did a clinic for space systems for L'Oreal. They
Mm.
were trying to qualify embedded systems compilers for which ones implemented the C standard correctly.
Oh, wow.
I wrote the code for that. I read the C standard and tried to find all the little places where it could go wrong.
Wow.
And I mean, at the time, it was just, as a project, my teammates were irritating. Why couldn't we write who cared about how many spaces there were after the period? Just get all the information to the client. But yeah, that proved to be very useful later. Very, very useful. But at the time, it was just another thing. So I did that clinic, and then I did the thesis on intelligent tutoring systems.
Cool. And so then you started to work for HP, and they were like, hey, put this motor controller together and make something move. Or you did other stuff before that?
I went to HP's net server division. So they were making servers. And this was mid 90s. So
yeah,
it's kind of the power that's on my phone now.
Yeah.
But they were for companies to buy pretty big servers, and the servers needed to be monitored. Were they getting too hot? Were they getting too full? And so I wrote drivers for all of our monitoring, for a lot of our monitoring features. And then I'd put them up in SNMP, which makes me sound so old. But
I don't know what that means. So.
I'm going to go on and make it worse. I wrote drivers for OS2, Novell NetWare, as well as Windows, and what was the other defunct operating system that was super popular then? I don't remember, but it was. I wrote drivers for a bunch of different operating systems, and I kept getting closer and closer to the hardware on what it could do. Until I was playing at the level of reading data sheets.
Yeah.
So I just kind of crept over there. And then when I looked for a new job, and this one had signal processing, although it didn't say that, or I would never have thought that it was going to fit me. But they wanted motor control. Okay. They wanted signal processing. Sure. And then they wanted code. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And that worked out really well.
Nice.
It set me on a path that was really great. Unfortunately, HP split into HP and Agilent. And I was on the Agilent side, and all my friends were at startups. And I was like, why am I at this startup kind of company that I don't know if it's going to be great forever? Why don't I just go to a startup like all my friends?
Cool. And so is that when you started working for Leapfrog then?
No, I have so many jobs. Well, but you know how much I love IMUs.
Yes.
That was when I went to work for Crossbow, where we were making the very first MEMS inertial measurement units. The very first in MEMS gyros were out, or rate sensors, really. The first magnetometers for commercial use, as opposed to scientific magnetometers.
Yeah.
And then the accelerometers had been around for a little while, but it was before the Wii. So nobody had any idea what these things did. And that was really fun, because the applications of inertial measurement units are like airplanes and race cars, boats.
Is that when you got to drive around a track? Was that?
Yes.
Nice.
I've been 180 miles an hour in a car, which is fast. And I've been in the pits, totally separate point, but I've been in the pits during a Indy 500 style race, a NASCAR race. That's what they're called.
Okay.
A few minutes before the race was getting started, my head underneath the steering wheel, while everybody around me is just scurrying around, and and I'm sitting there trying to fix my software because.
Did you do it? Was it fixed?
It wasn't, but it was because the theory was not good. It was Kalman filters. So you take in inertial measurement units and GPS to figure out where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
And this was for a TV effect so that they could point a little pointer at the car that they were talking about, which
interesting.
If you've watched NASCAR, you've probably seen. And if you've watched Cars, the movie, it was made fun of in Cars, which was really great when your product is being made fun of. But
you've made it.
Yes, exactly. We tested on cars going 55 because that was how fast we could go. Right. I mean, we rented tracks, but it still was mostly 55. The IMU would update at 100 hertz. And at 55 miles an hour, that's fast enough to figure out where the GPS updates should be.
Yeah.
When you're going around a track at like a full revolution in 2 seconds, you just don't get enough data.
Yeah. Wow.
And looking back, it's totally obvious to me. But at the time, we were some of the first to have that fusion integration, especially into such a tiny sensor.
Yeah.
And it was super exciting. It was very fun. The guy I worked with was a mutter. In fact, I almost didn't take the job because the guy who I'd be working with didn't interview me. And I was like, well, that's kind of a red flag. And it was Tony Rios, and he saw my resume, saw I was a mutter, and said, you should hire her, and didn't even want to talk to me. And he was so much fun to work with.
Cool.
After that, I went to Leapfrog.
So I think that the Leapfrog thing is so interesting because you have the worst users in the world, right? I mean, your users are literally babies, and they're gonna just take your stuff and throw it and mash every button and do things that make no sense. And like, what was that like, designing things for the worst users in the world? Like, it seems like it would be a really hard job.
It taught me some good things. Like, someone will always push the volume button no matter what you're doing. So you'd better be prepared. Someone will always push another button no matter what. Right. You think, okay, you push this button and then that button, and that's how this process works. No. Users will always do it wrong. And if you just start out with kids, that assumption is always true. And it really it becomes part of the whole zeitgeist of how you develop. Let's see. I do have toys here.
Yeah. Let's see.
This one actually is one you should recognize, Carrie.
Oh yes, that thing.
This is awful. Most of my toys I really liked, but this one in particular, the Drive and Learn, is it had some cool features that I personally got to develop that they didn't even know were possible. Mm-hmm. But overall, it's just super irritating.
Excellent.
Like, why does the horn change the song?
That is kind of odd. I mean, I guess it is sort of like an obvious push button, but
sorry, the gear shift makes the audio change and go faster.
Which you probably had to do without changing pitch, which is, yeah.
And Leapfrog was interesting because they developed their own chip. I mean, when you're truly making millions of something,
yeah,
you can spend that money to do an FPGA and then do a chip. And it wasn't, it was masked ROM, which means it was truly ROM. We couldn't update these things in the field. Mm-hmm. In fact, once they printed 10,000 of them, that's what they used. You couldn't, the whole agile development and continuous integration does not make sense when you have consumer products that need to ship in the millions.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And you can spend like you can have one engineer work for a year on reducing your bill of materials by like $0.01, And that actually makes economic sense, which is also a completely different way of thinking of things.
Yeah. I mean, how many sensors do you need? Okay. Yeah. I want you to do it with one less because sensors always cost money.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we put 26 buttons on something without actually putting 26 buttons on anything? Because that's expensive.
And they're all going to break. Yeah. Yeah.
So Leapfrog was super interesting because I would get a line of toys, and I would get like all of the preschool toys. And the goal was to do as little work on each one as possible. So you make your base toy, and then for this preschool toy, you add these extra features. For this one, you add those extra features. But you really want to make a core reusable system.
Got it.
Yeah. And unlike most times when we make reusable software, we really did reuse this because we reused it like the next week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was, I mean, yeah. And then they let me go volunteer at a kindergarten and take the toys and ask the kids what they thought. It was so fun.
That's got to be brutal too. You know, they're going to be honest.
Yes, but it's recess. They don't really care.
Yeah.
They may be honest, but they're so happy and fun.
Oh, funny. How often were they coming out with new toys at Leapfrog? I mean, you said like the next week you would be working on something different, but like what was like the release schedule for a new product?
Our release schedules are brutal because if it's not out in October, nobody cares.
Right. Yeah.
That's
all about holidays.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was the big toy fair in January. So from October to January, we were rushing to make prototypes. And from January to May, we were rushing to get things ready to ship. And then at that point, it depended on, are you looking at new toys? Are you looking at new technology? Are you trying to figure out lines? Are you switching over to educational stuff? So there was some slack in there. 1 year after we shipped most of our toys in the engineering department, we went to Toys R Us for competitive analysis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we bought we brought the really nice boss with the credit card and filled up 2 shopping carts of other people's toys to take apart. Nice. That was the first time that I really took stuff apart to find out how it worked.
Ah, cool.
And it did open my eyes to the joy of ripping things apart, especially if you don't care if you ever have to put it together. Yeah, so we found some new sensor technology there, but it was the number of tricolor LEDs that were becoming popular. So we really thought that would be obvious, but because so many other people were using them, that caused Leapfrog to start looking more in that area, which I thought was great.
Yeah. How much, how much tricky coding did you have to do? Were you trying to really shove the most capability into, small amounts of memory and low cost processors and things like that? Or did they, since they were doing stuff custom, was that not much of a issue?
Oh, it was totally an issue. I mean, it was an 8051 core.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There were only a few registers. And so we wrote C, but if you wanted to work on the core of the toys, usually you had to at least read the assembly.
Wow.
And
so all of that experience of looking through C standards previously probably came into a lot of good use there, huh?
I certainly knew what each and every keyword did.
Wow.
I was never fooled by static and volatile, which I understand are not normal keywords, but those, I had those down. So I was really lucky that way. Yeah, and actually the speeding up and slowing down of the music was a spot where it had to go into our kernel, and I spent like 3 days trying to find an extra register, an extra variable I could get rid of so that I could put one more thing in.
Yeah. Jeez.
And as you said, when you're talking about that kind of production, 3 days is nothing.
Yeah.
My time was cheap compared to the plastics, the electronics, all of the pieces.
How early or late in the process did you get prototype hardware? And I guess this is a question in general too, even like kind of for the work that you do now. I mean, embedded programming, it relies on both, right? And you might have something working great on your desk that's just all prototyped together, but then, oh, hey, that button changes or it has different characteristics when you actually get the real hardware out there, or, something changes, and there are always surprises. So how do you how do you deal with that? And when do you like to start getting hardware?
Immediately.
Yeah. Of course.
It's never soon enough to give me hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, we had these we had some of the cores. I remember we were trying to make cores of product, cores of software.
Mm-hmm.
That also meant that our prototypes could be easily shifted between. I mean, if we were doing a whole line of toys, then you have the core that works with this, and you kind of plug in a few other things, and now it's that toy. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't have all the plastics, it's just buttons and speakers and lights.
Not too big of a deal.
So there were those prototypes, but it was still before Arduino, before dev boards, before SparkFun and Adafruit. So if we wanted a prototype of something else, if we wanted a new conductive touch sensor, and we were getting it from a vendor, they would cost multi-thousands of dollars, which nobody ever paid. I didn't learn that until much longer. It was always loaned to you.
Right, yeah.
By the salesperson.
But you'd have to sweet talk them for a long time in order to get these really precious, samples, essentially.
Well, that was the beauty of Leapfrog. You didn't have to sweet talk them at all.
Nice. They were like, "Oh, you're gonna buy these in the millions. Awesome. Here you go. What else do you want?" Yeah.
But yeah, we would get. This one says that it's a prototype. Mm-hmm. That's a final engineering prototype, which is why it has all the stickers and stuff. Mm-hmm. This one is a much earlier prototype. Mm-hmm. And you can see it doesn't have the stickers. It doesn't have all the labeling.
Right.
And it just isn't. While the green and reds are the right colors, some of the blues aren't. Mm. So, yeah, the mechanical guys, I remember when they got their first 3D printer, and they were so excited. Yeah. But we would get first shots of plastic that were in the wrong colors, toys that came back in Barbie pink because that's what was in the machine.
Right. Yeah.
But for the development toys, it was mostly what now I would think you just slap together a bunch of SparkFun boards. But instead, they were all boards that had been developed in-house.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, interesting. So I'm thinking of starting to maybe do some crafting here while talking about the next thing I want to talk about, which is how your book came about. But I have a hard-hitting question about your book, first of all. What is this animal, and did you get to pick it?
It is a great-eared nightjar.
Ah, is
And
it an
if you
owl?
no, not exactly.
Okay.
It's an Asian bird. If you find a picture of it, they are really, really cute. And I did not get to pick it. I wanted an
Oh,
amoeba or a dinosaur.
yeah. And
They
you
were
did.
both categories that they said wouldn't do. And then the previous embedded systems book had been a tick, and
Oh,
so
oh,
I
that's
was extremely excited with my bird at that point once they said, "How about a tick?" And I'm like, "No,
no. Wow, a tick. That's really
that's
selling it.
yeah, not good."
Oh man. So I'm going to start by just doing something that I've been wanting to do for a while here, which is testing out some different conductive tapes. So this is a Chibitronics kit, and it has these circuit board stickers, which, if I can get them apart there, are basically just like, it's this really, really thin material with an adhesive back. And I mean, they really just are stickers. They just come right off. They have some conductive pads on the back, I assume with conductive tape as well. And yeah, and you stick them on and you use conductive tape to make your circuit. I played with something, I don't know if it was a Chibitronics kit, but it was something similar a while ago. And it was difficult to work with the copper tape. It just didn't want to conduct, especially if you had two different pieces. It was hard to, like, you would think that you could just like stick it on top of each other and your circuit would be fine, but that wasn't the case. And my theory was because the adhesive was acting as an insulating layer. And so until you like really smushed it down and got rid of that adhesive, you wouldn't have a good circuit. So I'm curious about this. They have now gone to this fabric tape. And so this is the tape that came with the kit. I also have some run-of-the-mill, I don't even know where I got it, conductive tape here. And then I have some specific conductive tape from McMaster-Carr that has conductive adhesive as well. And I wanted to see if that was a lot better or not, because maybe the adhesive just isn't really conductive enough. So I'm going to be working on my paper circuit here. But I would love to hear about how your book came about. Was writing a book a goal that you had always had and you sort of figured out a way to make it happen? Or was somebody like, hey, you know a lot and you should write a book because that information is valuable?
Let's see. After Leapfrog, I did a little bit of consulting, mostly for Audible. And then I went to ShotSpotter to make gunshot location systems. Mm-hmm. And then I left ShotSpotter, and at ShotSpotter, I ever since HP, they kept trying to make me a manager, and that's pretty much when I would leave the job. But at ShotSpotter, they succeeded in making me a manager and then a director. And I hired a lot of people, and I interviewed a lot more. I didn't know how to give them my experience. They came from software and they were afraid of the hardware. They came from hardware and they didn't believe in version control. How do you find the person that's both? And so I started developing a library. These are the books that you probably should read. These are the things you might want to think about. Mm-hmm. But I was bemoaning the fact that the design patterns really hadn't made it into embedded systems. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's such a great software tool of having, I mean, it's kind of like the Forrest Mims circuits. Everybody knows what they are and what they mean, and nobody uses them exactly as they are. But once you say that circuit name, everybody knows what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And design patterns are like that everybody knows what you're talking about. Nobody uses the state pattern straight out of the book. Just accept it. But once you know what the state pattern is, it's better. So I was whining to a colleague who was also a manager at a different company. And we were talking about books in our libraries and what we would want to put in a library for new embedded software engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And with the whole design pattern whining, he said, well, why don't you write that? And I was like, yeah, like I have time. And then I went home and drew up a proposal for O'Reilly. And there were a couple things with their proposals. They say, if you spell our name wrong, we will never talk to you, which, given how my name is spelled, I totally get it. And then they said it would take 6 weeks before anybody talked to you. Mm-hmm. It was 3 days.
Now, did you know anybody at O'Reilly going in?
It was total
complete cold call.
Yeah. And so it worked out. I had my proposal. I had a great editor. I had major life crises that made it so that I didn't ever want to go outside. And I spent 9 months writing the book. I did do contract work at that time as well, working on smart credit cards.
Oh, interesting. So it's interesting that you say Audible, because I'm like, oh, wow, well, it doesn't sound like much of an embedded system. Like, it's basically a computer and a speaker, right? But maybe there's more going on there that I'm not thinking about.
Well, we didn't have iPhones.
Okay.
We had Zen Creative or the iPod was first coming out. And so there were all these competitors for MP3 players. Mm-hmm. And Audible wanted to work on all of them, and all of them worked on different chip platforms. And that was where I was starting to be able to borrow the $10,000 chip kits so that I could write software for Audible.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a matter of doing their decryption, encryption, download, encoding, all of that on the TI C2000 chips. And then on the analog Sharks, and then just all of the chips. And we even did a pick. So I got to see a lot of chips, and that really helped as far as how the insight into the industry.
Interesting.
Plus, the Audible guys were really cool, and they, if you got put on hold, they played Charlotte's Web. So there was always the temptation to ask them to put you back on hold if you were at a good part.
Why don't more people do that? I think that should just be the default hold music now that I know that that's possible, right? So the process for writing this book then, was it, it sounds like the material was pretty much up to you in terms of what to write about and how to structure it, and how you said that you came up with a proposal. How long then did it take? How much time did you take to sort of plan the book, and how long did it take you to write it, and how much did you have to learn in order to write the book? Because I know anytime I try to teach something, I'm like, oh, I don't really know how to explain this, or I sort of know that it's true, but maybe not the nitty gritty details of why. And so I know I always learn stuff more when I try to explain it to other people.
Oh yeah. And teaching the classwork class you took.
Yeah.
I felt like every day I was teaching was a giant quiz on all of my past embedded knowledge. So yes, teaching is very much a matter of learning.
Yeah.
I really liked the design patterns, but I also, as I said, I knew nobody actually used them out of the box, and that I was one of the people who did not actually use them out of the box. Yeah. So my versions of my design patterns were ones not ones I had developed. They all started with the canonical ones, but definitely I had wandered off. So I did a lot of research into design patterns from the Gang of Four book and from the Head First Design Patterns books. I really liked those. They made a lot of sense. And they usually put things in metaphors or concrete terms, and that's better for me. Give me an example with a cat in it, and I'm all yours.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of research in that. And then there was picking. I didn't want it to be about one chip. So I picked 3 chips and then keep going back to them throughout the book. And so there was some learning on those chips to make sure that I had it all right. They were all chips I'd used before, but not used in the last 6 months before.
Yeah. So there's some brushing up.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time on how can I explain this to someone who is not at a computer, which I guess now is the style of technical book. But I read technical books at the beach. That was the only time I really read nonfiction. Now I read nonfiction a lot more, but I got into nonfiction by reading an E.O. Wilson book about ants. And it was the coolest thing. And I didn't have to be in a lab. I didn't have to be anywhere. I could just be somewhere I enjoyed. And that's what I wanted from my book. I did not want it to be 90% code. I did not want it to be something that you had to be at your desk for. I wanted it to be something you learned and thought about and put away and then pulled out when you needed it because you knew it was in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I most of your book, which I read during class, I read outside on my outside couch because I wanted to get fresh air and be in a relaxed and receptive thinking mode in order to, absorb and really think about what it was I was reading. Because I felt like if I was in a different setting, that I would resort to skimming and my brain would be thinking about something else at the same time. And yeah.
But then there are also like Python cookbooks where you have to be at your desk because that's what the book's for.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So yes, I'm glad you read it outside. That is appropriate. Thank you very much.
It wasn't the beach, but 10 miles away from the beach. I just want to say hi, Mark Smith. I saw some shout out in the comments there. How's it going?
Oh, I'm in the wrong chat. I see.
Oh yeah, there's a comments chat too. So, well, that's cool. So now, who edited your book, and who was not only the kind of, I guess, grammatical editor, but did you also have a technical editor who was reviewing? Yeah. And how did they provide one, or did you have to provide one? How was that process?
They provided one for sure. Andy Oram was my technical interviewer, but I would write a chapter and then I would give it to my husband.
There you go. Yeah. Nice.
And I mean, for folks who don't know, my husband is an embedded systems engineer and very smart. And he did the first edits. And then, I mean, even after doing the outline for the proposal, Andy made me do a much more detailed outline. So I never had to really start with a blank page. It was always, this is what I intend to talk about.
Nice.
So that was, and then I would give them to Andy, and then I would write my next chapter, and then Andy would give me all the changes. And that was kind of confusing.
But that's nice. So you did it piecemeal, though. That seems like a more approachable way of doing it rather than writing the whole book and giving the whole book to somebody and then getting all of the edits back. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Well, Andy would.
I know nothing about writing a book, so I don't know what's normal for that process at all. So that's interesting.
Textbooks are all different. It depends on what publisher you go with. O'Reilly holds your hand through the process because they have a style that they want to accomplish. Like practical, I don't remember their name. Tends to just want you to have a book and then they'll edit it after.
Interesting.
And I was really glad that Andy was willing to put that much time into understanding the topic, understanding what I was trying to convey, arguing with me when I was wrong. He made it a better book because he didn't understand it that well.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense to me.
If you're going to put a battery in that right corner, you're going to have to break that tape.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Sorry. I'm trying to mirror and I'm not mirroring, aren't I? Yes. 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 There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So this one works pretty well. Of course, I didn't break any of this tape. I just folded it over at the corners. So I'm interested in kind of learning what happens now. Like, what happens if I just like tear this little piece out? Ooh, this is hard to tear. The fabric tape is nice. I kind of want to see what happens if I just try to put some of the same tape over itself here. So just like verifying we're not getting anything conductive there. And let's see, where did couldn't have gone far. There we go. Just kind of want to see, if I do this.
And you did sticky side down, right?
Yep, sticky side down. So we're like, this is the worst case scenario. Does it still? Ooh, it does.
That's fine.
Nice. That was definitely not my experience when I played with something similar a few years ago. So, wow, I'm impressed. Cool. Gonna do the same test with this generic copper tape. I don't know. I probably got it off of Amazon or something. So cool. So yeah. So how long did that whole process take then of writing from when you started to at least when you were done with the writing, not counting the time that it took them after the final edits were done to actually produce the book?
I think January to late summer. So say July.
Wow. That's pretty fast. So less than a year, like maybe 6 months.
I mean, it was, like I said, my world had kind of fallen apart and I had nothing to do between 6 and 10 a.m. besides wallow or write. So I chose to write.
Cool. So also was a little bit of a therapeutic project for you.
Yes.
Did it help kind of, I don't know, ground you or make you more excited about working or doing things?
No. The life problems were started with my mom passing away and then went to me getting very sick. So it was therapy in that
motivation. Motivation and work were not the problems. Yeah. Interesting. And so now from a monetary aspect,
never write a technical book for the money.
Right. Yeah. That is absolutely what I have heard. And
yet.
Yeah.
So my book did not do well.
Okay.
To start with. People liked it, but there aren't that many embedded software developers.
Yeah.
And I had no public presence. Really intentionally, because there was stalking incidents in college and I was like, social media seems like a bad way to get stalked. So that was, there was just me I started Twitter with all of, 0 followers.
Yeah.
But the book has been one of O'Reilly's better sellers because it's been more than 10 years and the book brings in, it's been constant over the whole time.
Nice.
So every month I get a check and it's been the same. The sales never went down.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Wow. That's
So
awesome.
I haven't made necessarily 6 months of salary money, but
Yeah.
definitely more than 4. So
all right. So you're almost broken even on the book, sort of?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are other ways, there are other things
Yeah.
the book gives you. I
Yes.
mean, credibility.
Yes.
Stories about that time they used my book to interview me.
Oh, I want to hear that.
So my book has interview questions at the end of each chapter instead of having quiz questions or whatever. But the interview questions are not answered from the perspective of how you should answer them if you're being interviewed. They're from the perspective of you are now interviewing colleagues. What are you going to ask them? Because that was a big shift in my world when I went from being an interviewee looking for a job to being somebody who now was in charge of hiring. And I didn't know how to do that. And nobody I knew did either. So people over my career, it's happened twice that people have asked me questions that were from my book. Once it was just a coincidence. The other time I said, I think I've read the book you got that from. Do you have it? And they said, yeah, it's at my desk. And I said, could you please go get it? And he came back with 3 other people, no copy of the book, and asked, and then they did an interview where I explained the difference between I squared C, UR, and SPI to them. It was not so much an interview as an impromptu lecture.
Nice.
And I didn't even get that job. But I didn't get the job because I didn't want to travel. So that was the reason I didn't get the job.
Funny.
Yeah. So, and there's nothing like bringing out your book in the middle of, here, let me look up the answer to that problem.
Oh, funny. So that is, yeah. When did they realize?
I think they got to their desk, got the book, wondered what the hell I was about,
right,
and realized, and then talked to their coworkers,
and then
and then they all came back. It was pretty fun.
That is funny. Oh man. Okay.
I will say, I'm not really quite announcing this yet, so don't show this to anyone.
Okay, all right, we'll keep it a secret. Everybody got that? Secret.
I am starting a 2nd edition.
Yay! Cool.
And the hardest part is having to read my own writing. On the other hand, I don't remember it, so sometimes I wonder if I actually did write this because I don't remember. This is good advice. Why don't I do it?
That's funny.
Chris came out of the kitchen because I was giggling, and I was giggling at my own jokes in my book, which kind of seems really egotistical. But they were funny, and I didn't remember them.
I would hope that you would still find them funny, right? I mean, that is why you put them in there.
I guess, having read a lot of nonfiction now, there isn't a lot of, I have more jokes than most people. And the whole data sheet section.
I appreciate things that keep you, that break up the book a little bit and keep you interested, Yeah.
I mean, it's so, yeah. I hope that as I do the 2nd edition, I come up with a few more. I mean, not just jokes, but interesting ways of presenting the information such that it's more engaging, such that you push through the technical part because it's funny enough you want to know how it ends.
Nice.
Or it's interesting enough you want to know how it ends.
So now is the second edition going to have new stuff in it, or is it kind of or is it more like reframing the first one and making some edits from the first one, or?
Well, I mentioned I had 3 processors. I swapped out the NXP one for an ST Micro.
Nice.
Which, you can't just go through and cut, paste, swap. You have to look up all the things. So that's an easy change. Chapters are getting refreshed. Things I learned teaching class-part classes, which has been nice. Things that people have had trouble with. There was one diagram, the hierarchy of control, that everybody hated. And I changed that, and I think it's a lot more approachable now. Chapter 8 used to be about updating code. And now it's going to be all of the pieces you need for IoT stuff. Health monitoring, figuring out how to update the code, how to do the security, how to do the networking, and how to do multiple releases so that you don't trash all of the units in the field at the same time. All those things. So I went at some point. I went to Leapfrog, ShotSpotter, consulting at Fitbit, and they found me for my book. So my book was actually worth that alone.
Yeah.
And so I worked at Fitbit when there were only 2 other embedded engineers.
Oh, wow.
And that was a system that and ShotSpotter were both systems where you put stuff in the field and then you can never touch it again.
Yeah.
And if it breaks, it's actually really important. I mean, Fitbit less so, but you could easily put something out there that broke 1,000 Fitbits.
Right.
And that is a problem.
Yeah.
One Fitbit may not be, but and then how do you monitor the health to make sure that you're not having software that suddenly takes 30% more power to do the same thing? Or are rebooting constantly. So, that I think needs to go in the book because there's a lot of stuff that has changed there. Firmware update is still a pain in the neck, and I still want to have it as here's what you should expect from your over-the-air update. Here's the way Nordic does it. Here's the way ST does it, but maybe not use the names.
Right. Yeah.
Here's the way you do it if you have lots of extra flash. You can make a lifeboat and then describe what a lifeboat is, that kind of thing. Cool. And then I think the power section will get more about burden voltage and more about the tools that have come out like JewelScope and the Nordic power monitoring tools.
Yeah, the power profiler. I love that little thing. So good.
I didn't have those then. And I mean, they are amazing.
Yeah.
Because I never really care what the current voltage of my unit is. What I want to know is if I am doing something and then I go to sleep and then I wake up. Did I successfully get to sleep? Did I wake up quickly enough to handle whatever real-time problem I had?
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of stuff. So that's chapter 8's getting redone. Chapter 5, I thought I was rewriting most of it. And then I read it and most of my notes on what I should put in it were already in there. So that was really kind of cool. But it's getting, that one's that's the state machine and interrupt chapter.
Yeah.
it got reorganized a bit, and there'll be a little bit more about when you're setting up a main loop, what are your options?
Ooh.
Are you doing event driven? Are you doing ISR driven? If you have a operating system, are you doing a thread per thing and going to sleep like an active object? So yeah, that one works too. They all work.
Yeah, they all work. So I'm gonna do, so this is the conductive adhesive one. It's interesting. The normal adhesive one worked better than I thought. I just pressed this on top and, oh, this might be a fault in my switch.
It doesn't look like it. Your switch is huge.
I know, right? Let's see. Yeah, but if I press down, like if I just press down on the middle,
it doesn't work. I mean, it works some, but yeah, it's
exactly. So I have to press down on either side of it. It's interesting. What I should do is I should put a white sticker here so that I can see if there's any like noticeable difference in brightness or anything. There's another white one. There's another white one. So yeah, there we go. And let's see.
The Chibitronics have the adhesive, have the conductive adhesive. That's why their stickers work.
I think so. Yeah. I wish I could remember what one I used a few years ago. I feel like it was like a greeting card kit or something. Yeah, they both look like reasonably bright to me. So there's not like a noticeable difference between the two. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think it works. I think the conductive tape works better than I anticipated. But yeah, I think it was like some greeting card kit, and it just like I remember just like struggling with that tape, and I was like, man, if I'm struggling with this and I know what's supposed to happen, it would be really a bummer for somebody who is new to it that like wouldn't necessarily know what was going on to try to troubleshoot. But yeah, all of these are working pretty well. That's kind of cool.
And I mean, I say I'm not really talking about the new book yet, but it should be announced by O'Reilly in May. So cool. It's not like it's super early.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to it. XOX says that thing we're not allowed to talk about sounds super exciting. Yeah, it's I have a question for you. Is there going to be a I don't know if you're hearing that. There is something going, yes, something flying overhead very low, which usually doesn't happen here. So that is interesting. But is there going to be a GitHub repo that goes along with it?
Yes.
Oh, exciting.
Yes, there is. And there wasn't before.
Yeah.
Although the book doesn't have a ton of code.
Yeah.
Things like the command prompt interpreter thing will go in there.
Super useful.
I'm finding that I'm putting like some of the links that can get broken to other sites, and more further reading or putting in the data sheets for the chips I'm talking about so that people can get if you're following along, here are the things that you might want right now. I'm hoping to put a bit more code in there, but I haven't yet. And calculators, like there'll be a power calculator, which you probably saw in ClassPert. But I also did a timer calculator. Oh, so cool. This is your clock. This is what you want it to be. How do I get from here to there?
Nice. Yeah, I'm always making spreadsheets for that stuff. It's like the first thing that I'm doing, that I do when setting up timers. Yeah.
I mean, me too. And so why not just make a timer that anybody can get to?
Cool. So what do you have in your box over there? So you have some copper tape too, some 3M stuff.
Yeah, it's not the one I was looking for. I had thinner stuff that I knew worked really well for circuits, and I have the Chibitronic stickers.
Nice. I'm interested to see how that stuff works.
And then Circuit Scribe pen.
Nice. Yes, I have one of those too that I've not tried yet. I have two things here that I was just gonna see if I could hook up like a normal LED to. So this is the Bare Conductive, and it uses, I think, like a carbon-based, conductive. It's conductive paint, so it says it's electric paint. So it comes out kind of puffy. It feels like puffy paint, actually. And then there's also, and I did this like right before we started the stream, so it's been drying a little bit. They say to wait like 15 minutes for it to dry. And then this stuff is the same sort of thing, although it's not in quite as nice of a container. So this is actually Chip Quick. And if I could find it, they give it to you in a, there we go. They give it to you in a syringe. So it's Chip Quick CP1 10S, low resistance conductive paint. And, it is likely using silver as a conductive medium here, but it was a bit, it definitely came out in a big glob that I then just like took a popsicle stick to kind of spread out a little bit. And then it kind of oozes because it's a syringe. So you have like a little bit of that pressure still there that just makes it kind of ooze. So it wasn't quite as easy to work with as the Bare Conductive, which is just like a little squeeze tube, which is kind of nice.
You didn't, did you try graphite too?
No, I have not done just plain old graphite. We could do that.
There's nothing like buying expensive things only to find out that a pencil
right? Right. Yeah. Gosh, one of my friends had like a cool, I'm trying to remember what it was. They had like an interesting graphite thing. But yeah, it had never occurred to me just to, try to use pencil for a circuit. I kind of forget about it. Forget about the most common of tools sometimes. So I'm going to do the same. You can tell I'm super precise in my circuit sketching and bending here. So I'm going to do the same sort of thing.
If you have to be super precise, then
right,
you should just get like a plotter.
Well, I will say that when I folded my butterfly earlier here, I was definitely, I know you probably can't even see it, but my corner, it's not quite on the corner, and I was just like kind of like, no. So I'm curious if, let's try a good old red LED first. The video, I'm curious. I mean, it's probably a little bit more conductive when it's wet, would be my guess. The video shows for the, let's see, where is it? For the circuit, for the Chip Quick paint, it shows just like painting it over the LED legs. And, now seeing like how goopy and stuff it is, that might actually work pretty well for securing the legs to your traces here. But I kind of wanted to be able to switch out the LEDs to look at red LED as well as like a rainbow LED, which takes higher voltage, to see if both of them would be lit up. So I did not paint over it. I figured I would just, but yeah, there we go. I'm not sure if this is going to come in over the camera, but let's see. That's, oh yeah, you can see that lights up and then doesn't light up. So that's not too bad. That's the that is the bare conductive stuff. And then this is the chip quick stuff. Ooh, interesting. Oh, wait. Yeah, battery. I know what I'm doing. Ooh, now my battery is a little bit gooey. Maybe I'll leave that one there. Steal this one. All right. Battery there. That's folded over. And that one is positive. Ooh, much brighter. Check out how much brighter that is. Wow. Okay, so I know which paint I like better. That's cool. I'm gonna put this binder clip back on this one. I wonder if this will even light up the our rainbow multicolor LED here. I feel like, barely. Yeah, this is one of like the self flashing, slow and fast pattern ones. And I mean, I am getting some blue, but not very much. And then this is the chip quick. Choo, so much brighter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. All right, maybe we should try plain old graphite too. I feel like I want to make it some bigger battery pads here. Some wider traces really carry that current there. So, okay, so you wrote the book, and then you also started doing the class with Classbert, which
I mean, many years later.
Awesome, many years later. Yes. And what made you want to do that and decide to do the class?
I kind of randomly agreed to do an embedded online talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always kind of weird about these things because I hate talking about women in tech. It's just not interesting for me to talk about. But then if I talk about something fluffy or something that might be fluffy, then I feel like, well, I don't want people thinking that I'm just talking about fluffy things.
Right. Yes.
So I did the memory maps talk.
Ah, yes.
And I had just so much fun. I mean, what I really did is I flipped through my book and I asked people, what is the hardest part about embedded systems that people don't learn? And like several people said how cool memory maps are. And I totally agree. I love memory maps. What they can do is just, I mean, it's just very cool.
Yes, I had never played with memory maps before your class. So it was definitely a lot of learning and eye-opening for me.
I mean, they give you all this information about your code.
Yeah. My pencil is not working at all here. It might be too high resistance, or I might just not have a it might be just harder to kind of make connection, especially with the bottom of the battery, which is a little bit textured. Trying to see if I have like a fresh battery here. This one still has a little bit of the goop on it from the conductive paint. Let's see. I have only a million things that are battery powered here. If I can steal one out.
I'm kind of glad you found the bare conductive ink wasn't that great, because that's the one I've tried the most and it gets all over my fingers.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the chip quick stuff is also reasonably, yeah. Well, boring old pencil just does not work very well. So definitely the pens are better. Ooh, I haven't tried the circuit scribe yet. Yeah. So, okay. So interesting. So you basically, so you were like, well, maybe I should teach a class so that people don't think that I'm just fluffy. But
Well, no.
memory maps wasn't fluffy. So what were you talking about that was fluffy?
I wanted to give the talk that wasn't fluffy, and then after memory maps came out and people really liked it, I wanted Clasper talked to me at just that time.
Got it.
And they got me on a good day.
Nice.
I did not do this neat enough, apparently.
And so that was something else that your book kind of opened that door for you, yes? Because Clasper only does classes by people who have written books. Is that correct, I think? Do you know? Oh, you're muted. How did that happen?
It's because I almost unplugged my microphone. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I mean, I know that Clasper is thinking about changing that, but they haven't yet. So we'll see.
Cool. So the Circuit Scribe is much more like a pen.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm definitely kind of curious about this. It has, the problems of a ballpoint pen too, which is that sometimes the ink doesn't want to flow very well.
Well, I think this ink especially doesn't want to flow.
Yeah, I'm also like on a hard surface. I wonder if a slightly softer one will be better. But yeah, it is definitely not as user-friendly, I would say, as the paint. Leave that there, see what that does. Okay, where'd all my batteries go? I got a great, completely messy crafting desk going on right now. So I got one there, and I have one there. Let's look at that one. Let's see. So this, I'm also like I'm a little skeptical about that connection. Yeah, it's not really. Let me look at this. It's not really lighting up the LED well. I feel like, yeah. I feel like the paint is really the way to go for the drawing your own circuit kind of thing. I think it needs like some substance to it. Because if it's too flat, I don't know, it just doesn't. There's either just not enough there to conduct very well, or maybe there are just gaps that are hard. There we go. And it also, yeah, that's interesting. So the binder clip alone isn't really doing it. I'm having to kind of press down on the battery in order to get it to make contact. But that actually is making reasonably good contact. Let's see if it does a RGB one. Yeah, that's not bad. It's actually better than the once you get it going, I feel like it's a little bit better than the bare conductive.
It's funny, I actually tried this and it worked fine, but I think my pen might be dying.
I wonder if I just move that to a different spot. Yeah, it's. Oop. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely much more sensitive to like where the paperclip is on the battery than the paint was, which makes sense since it's just like a thin layer of ink essentially. So how are the classes going? You're not doing a class right now. Are you, or was that it? Or are you going to be doing them again in the future? What did you like and not like about the class? It seems like it would be a ton of work, like a ton of work. So, I mean, I was wondering, and I mean, you were charging, like, I think a very legitimate amount of money for it, but still, I was just like, oh man, it still seems like she's putting a lot of hours into this.
So I don't ever want to do things badly.
Yeah.
And the best part were the students and their projects and the things they brought, and when the students would talk to each other about what was the best website for doing hex stuff, I mean, that was cool. So the students were definitely the best part. But I'm not very sociable. And it was hard to be on.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to make sure I was doing a good job. You know, when I compile, my compiler tells me I'm an idiot if I'm not doing a good job in its terms. Clients pay me, so I assume they're still happy with me.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always more I could do for the students, and I couldn't really get myself out of that. On the other hand, I mean, I put a lot of work into those videos. I put a lot of work into the quizzes, although those do need more work because I don't know how to write quizzes. I didn't know that was hard, but it was really hard.
I have to say, I didn't like the quizzes, but that was the only part I didn't like.
The quizzes, okay, so the quizzes, the way they should work is if you already know the material, you can just skip that section.
Yeah.
And if you just learn the material, you can puzzle it out.
Mm-hmm.
But what it turned into was a please read my mind.
Yeah.
And that was not the right thing. But it's so hard with embedded systems. You can never say always compile with optimizations set to RAM. Or a SPI is the fastest way to transmit data. There will always be an exception. It doesn't really matter what you say. And so I had a lot of trouble on the quizzes trying to get definitive statements.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And so it ended up with which of these is the best answer.
Yeah.
And I also did a lot of, I think, multiple answers for one question. From this list, which of these are the most true?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, how far do you want to go down?
Yeah.
So I think those all need to be individual questions.
Yeah.
And better explained and all of that. So
multiple choice is hard. Like, it would have been easier if they were open-ended, right? Like, for me as a student, but for you as a teacher, of course, then that means that you can't have an automated system of of grading, really.
Well, I mean, you can still play bingo that if they have these five words in, you're probably got it pretty close to right.
Yeah.
So ClassPert's thinking about doing a self-paced one.
Oh, interesting.
A self-paced cohort that can just go through when they're ready and watch the videos. And they won't get the final presentation being critiqued, and they won't get as many TAs, or they may not get TAs. We don't know yet. So that's coming up soon too.
Interesting. I think that I would not have done it as well with that setup because I need some external deadlines and motivation. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of everybody in the class doing everything at the same time and learning from other people's questions and answers. And that was a big part of it for me.
One of the best things was convincing ClassPert that there was not going to be one project.
Oh.
There were going to be an infinite number of projects.
Yes.
And everybody got to do it different.
Yeah.
And then you all had to watch each other's, and I'm like, ha ha ha. Now they're learning about other things.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, yeah, that part was really cool.
Yeah.
And I recently finally took a cohort-based class myself. And
nice.
There is something about having a deadline each week. Get you to actually do stuff, not put it off.
It kept me on point. And I mean, that's also what drew me to take the class, as opposed to being like, oh, I'll just read the book that I've already had for like a couple of years and have read like parts of here and there. And yeah, it kept me honest.
As a book club, it's not bad.
As a book club. Oh, man. No, it was really good. It was also very enjoyable for me because a lot of my embedded programming that I had done had pretty much been in a vacuum. So it was the first time that I got to work with other people and see how other people approached things in a very detailed kind of way. And so that was also very helpful. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was fun. I loved it.
I'm not going to say I'd never do it again. I just am not currently in the right brain space to do it.
Well, it seems like you had very little time off between the cohorts too. Like you did 3 in pretty rapid succession. Like maybe there was a month or 2, but that didn't seem like enough downtime. Like
it wasn't, but ClassPart wants to be able to say they're going to start in May, and I have to decide if I've had enough of a break. And
yeah.
The two back to back, the first 2 were really tiring, and then I took a little break and did the third.
Cool.
And it's, if I'm doing client work for most of the day and then trying to fit in ClassPart around it.
Yeah.
They're such different things.
Yes.
It's hard to switch.
Yes.
So there's some temptation to like, okay, I'm just going to do ClassPart for this amount of time. But that means more students, which means more TAs. How do we balance making sure everybody gets a good experience?
Yeah.
They're doing a good job. They're trying to do a good class experience. But it's also, teaching's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of time, and it's always, it's always different every time. So it's not like you can just, put one thing out there once and then it's done, and like, very different from the book, right?
So, yes, very different.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was like a 2-hour-long course, quiz every Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It's like, they could ask me anything. And sometimes they did, and I didn't know the answer.
But I mean, that's part of it though. And like, I appreciated, I always appreciate it when people say that they don't know, right?
Yeah.
And they tell you, they're like, well, I do know this and I do know that, but I don't know this, specific thing. And rather than trying to bullshit your way through things. Yeah, that
can be useful, but not if you're trying to teach somebody something.
Yeah. Yeah. So you fold paper, you do some cool stuff with origami, and you particularly seem to like doing these intricate curved structures. So what drew you to origami, and what do you like about doing all the curved stuff? Wow, that is crazy that a flat piece of paper can make that shape. I just
So that flat piece of paper used to just look like this.
Yeah.
It's one of the easiest of the weird origamis to make. What this is, it's got crease patterns that have circles, concentric circles. And when you fold it, it creates that saddle-like shape. There are 3 pieces of paper there, by the way. You can tell by the 2 colors, but there's 2 of the light color.
Okay. The light colors are in back?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I could actually, we'll see if it does the emergency call again when I put it back. Yeah, and this one I'm really happy with. There is an artist in a professor at MIT who does this style. Which I think is cool.
Yeah.
But his math class on origami, talk about self-paced pain. I really want to take it, and I've watched the first one like 4 times now.
Oh.
I do have other things for origami to show.
Yeah.
I really like the curvy stuff.
Yeah.
Because it behaves in ways you don't expect, and curves always have to be 3D.
Okay, yeah.
You can't fold them flat. Like there's Makaiwa's theorem and all of these things that like you just can't. And so I took a pattern for snails that was flat foldable, and you could squish the snail that way. But now that it's curved, they're actually pretty springy. So
cool.
And then I make a lot of octopuses. That's my other favorite thing.
Nice.
I found out, so I had all the little butterflies scattered around earlier. The first time I fold something, it's, a puzzle. It's the normal origami puzzle sort of thing. And then when we had the embedded FM podcast party, the 300th party, I had to fold like 24 cats. The theme was cats and hacks. You either had to bring a cat or a hack. And I brought a cat that purred when you pet it. An origami cat that purred when you pet it.
Yes.
And so I discovered that folding the same thing over and over again is really interesting. It's kind of like when you have like a terrible joke and you just keep doing it and suddenly it becomes funny again.
So I have a question. When you're folding paper in half like this and you just have the point, how do you have any tricks for how to make it so that your 2 edges, your 2 ends here and here are perfectly pointed as well? And I mean, I guess it does depend upon the squareness of your paper too. So, maybe my Amazon origami paper isn't perfectly square, but like how I keep being a little bit frustrated by the fact that I can't seem to get, like, I always have like a little bit of a flat spot.
So you did the first thing right, which is some people go there and then fold that way.
Okay.
But you really need to go straight back.
Straight down.
And then out. So you did that part right.
Okay.
I know that pattern pack you have, and it's pretty square.
So it's just practice, basically.
It's just practice. I mean, yes, I didn't used to get them very lined up, but now they almost always line up.
Nice.
And it's just practice.
I find when I have two ends here, I can do like a little bit of a better job. Where if I have the one point, it's easier to get it skewed off just a little bit.
And because it's longer, that skew shows more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right angles are much easier.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about maybe trying to put an LED in this butterfly. And now that we have done a survey here of the materials available, The copper tape is a pretty good solution, as is the slightly gooey Chip Quick conductive paint. The Circuit Scribe, this stuff was actually pretty good once I got it, once I actually pinched it myself. It definitely lit up the LED better than the Bare Conductive, which was a little bit surprising. But I think it just has to do with the material. I think the Bare Conductive is using carbon, and both Circuit Scribe and Chip Quick are using silver, I think. So you just get better conductivity with that. So I think I would use either the Chip Quick stuff or the copper tape, I think, are my materials of choice.
Actually, I liked this butterfly you chose because at the end you have pockets.
Ah, yes.
And so you have this, and then you have pockets in front in case you want to build something that has multiple butterflies.
Ah, yeah.
And you have pockets in the back to put your LED and your battery in. And so I was doing.
Oh, look at that. You got the sticker on there.
But it's not working today. It worked. It worked over the weekend. I wonder if I have the. Well, it doesn't. I can just turn over the battery, so that part doesn't matter.
Ah, there we go. I was like, I am forgetting how to do this. There we go. So then it goes like this, and then you fold it a little bit skewed.
Yeah, and you can fold it. I mean, you can fold it pretty much straight down or all the way over. It depends on. The more you fold it straight down, the more curve you get in your final butterfly. The more more out you get, the less
curved. Interesting. Well, maybe I'll fold straight down now to see what that looks like. Yeah. That was how I had started it, and then I noticed that they kind of did it off to the side, and then I changed it. So, and then you kind of take this and you sort of over fold it here so that there's a little tip that extends. And then, and then I kind of just gently creased it, but not all the way to the edges because you don't want it to tear. And then this goes over that way. Interesting. And then, so did you, okay, there we go. And so then you can kind of pinch it and get a butterfly.
There's not a lot more curve here. This one was straighter down and this one was further out.
I feel like it's a little more, maybe not curved, but there's a little bit more three-dimensionality to it. Then where did my other one go? There we go. Then this one, which seems a little bit flatter to me.
Yeah, that's what I found.
Yeah, I like this better because it kind of stands up on the table, whereas this one is a little flopsy.
So this is the circuit that I made.
Nice.
The two lines, and then this line has to touch over here.
Okay.
To get to the back of the battery.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it was working, which I promise you it did.
I swear it did.
It even didn't fly out or anything. Put that in there, and then the back of my butterfly wing worked. Oh, right. I wasn't on camera to do that.
Oh, nice. I might try copper tape so that I can also, I'm going to just use these standard LEDs. These are the rainbow ones. So I kind of need to hold them down a little bit. And
tape will do better for that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. this one this way.
Are you going to put them on the back or on the front?
I'm going to put them on the back in that little sort of, well, yeah, the battery will be in the little pocket area. And I don't know if it's going to quite make contact on its own. I think I'll end up binder clipping it at the bottom here if I can, maybe. And yeah, I think, oh, but if I put okay, I can't put the battery in the middle because it needs to fold there. So I have to put the battery off to the side. There we go, so that it can kind of fold in the middle there. But I was thinking of doing one LED on each wing, but just powered by the one battery. So, all right, let's make that happen.
One LED on each wing. Okay.
That's the idea. And let's see, which tape should I use? I'm going to use... I'll use the conductive adhesive copper tape.
So how are things going for you?
They are going pretty well. I am making some new yarn tools, so that's very exciting. And let's see, I have to figure out how to do this so that I don't short stuff out accidentally. So if I want my positive LED leg to be maybe on one side of this fold and the negative to the other, and maybe if I skew them a little bit, hopefully they won't accidentally touch. Okay, that's my plan. Yeah, so it's going pretty well, making new yarn tools, and yeah, that's kind of exciting. I I very, very quickly took my took the code that I wrote and the circuit board that I developed for one of the existing tools that I sell called the Skein Twister, and I was working up against an external deadline. So there was a yarn show in the beginning of March, and I had benchtop proof of concepts, but I did not have a prototype that I could really take and show to other people, because really, your benchtop proof of concept is something that only it turns out only you can love and envision the gloriousness of the thing that it will become, right? Other people kind of get caught up in the visuals of like, why does that look like a piece of crap that's duct taped together and and has all of these weird sharp edges and isn't in an enclosure and like, other people can't see past that, even though you can, and you're like, well, obviously I wouldn't do that for a final product. So yes, getting it shoved into a box and, connectorized in a way and have it be roughly the size and the shape of the product that I wanted to build, that was a pretty big effort. And yes, and so I had this March deadline, and I was working on it pretty solid from like December on. But mostly mechanics. So the new thing that I'm working on is an electric ball winder, and it has some pretty, it's definitely the most mechanically complex thing that I have built. So I'm getting my Fusion 360 skills brushed up and polished, and, diving back into solid modeling in a real way. And so, yeah, it has these like pulleys and gears, and the motor control is actually pretty easy. And I was able to just adapt the existing motor control that I had already done for the Skein Twister. Yeah, interestingly enough, the the code getting it to where it is right now was definitely the easiest part. It only took me like 2 days of maybe like 4 hours per day of rewriting and refiguring and refactoring. And the foot pedal became a big red push button, and I added like one sensor to it. And when I looked back at my code, I had commented it, and that was really great. And I had actually organized it, and I hadn't looked at this code in probably like 5 years. So yeah, I had organized it in a way that made sense. I had a nice state machine in there, so all I had to do was change the states a little bit and add a few things, and it was I was able to do that in just a few days, which was good because the mechanical design was lagging. And at that point in time, it was the week before the show. And yeah, I really didn't want to go there with like an external motor controller and like crappy knobs and stuff like that. So that was a good thing. But yeah, it's exciting to be working on something complex and new again, I would say. Okay. I don't want this over
these little circuit stickers.
Yes.
They hide.
Yeah, they hide. They do. I'm like really curious about the substrate that is used on these circuit stickers, because it's definitely, I mean, I think it's just Kapton, maybe. I think they're just like little flex circuits with some, ooh, I know. I can have the change to the microscope view here. Let's see. Get a better view of these guys. So this one I have peeled off, so it's a little worse for the wear, but that's basically it. I mean, metallized gold pads. I think the adhesive thing is so interesting to me because, like, is it conductive? Is it not conductive? One would think it would need to be conductive, but then but not too conductive because you have both sides of the LED there, right? So obviously you can't have it be too conductive or else it would short out the LED and it wouldn't light up. Yeah, I'm curious about what's going on there. It looks like it's just one sort of continuous piece of adhesive there. And then that's just the top, some solder mask on top, a little LED, little fixed, fixed LED, probably like 0603 size.
That'll work.
Let's see. Ooh, yeah.
Lit this one briefly.
Oh, this is the other one.
Okay, I have one working.
Excellent.
It should work.
Yeah, I need to figure out, let's see, how I want this to go. So let's see. Ooh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to sandwich this leg in the copper tape. Let's see if that one works. Okay. Sandwich you. And then...
This one does not work. So, okay, fine, turn over. Nope, you don't work that way either. Huh.
Actually, let's see about that. All right. I'm kind of sandwiching my LED legs between pieces of copper tape because I'm hoping that means it'll be a little, just a little, more solid, more opportunities to actually conduct. All right. And then this is going to be, it's going to be a little tricky because don't want them. Battery will be there. I think it'll be all right. We'll live dangerously.
They're little batteries.
Yep. Fortunately, 2032s are super forgiving. Okay. So, did I get them? Aha! I did get them in both the right way. That is excellent. So, I can do that.
All right. That.
I feel like, I know I'm not supposed to use tape to hold origami together, but I feel like I need to do a little something for the battery because I can't really get like a binder clip in there. So I might just, do I have a piece of, blue tape? There we go. I don't have any clear tape on the bench, but I totally have blue tape. Okay. No, come on. There we go. The paper is less opaque, or is more opaque than I thought it would be, actually. Well, I guess that makes sense because there are several layers, but at least I can backlight it.
Yeah, and you use a dark paper.
I did.
And I have a construction paper, so
I got what I thought was going to be translucent paper, and it turns out it was translucent, like thin plastic sheets. So I was like, those are not going to fold very well.
Yeah. Buying origami paper is hard.
Yeah.
Okay, you worked a minute ago.
Oh, one line is out. Why are you out? Let's see. Are you out? Let's see. Okay.
Oh, I'm having adhesive problems. Oh, maybe I'm not having adhesive problems. Maybe I'm having probes are not plugged in problems. Okay. I don't know what's the problem. Just being a jerk.
Oh, man. If I had put the LEDs inside the wings here, that would have been even better, although that would have been really hard to route the signal that way. I'm calling this a success, though. Oh, if this one would still stay, I would call it a success.
We should have just gone for one side.
Ah, more LEDs. Oh, I think it might be shorting out. I might need to put like a little isolation layer here. Hang on. Nothing some blue tape can't fix.
Isolation layer, you said.
I should have grabbed some Kapton. That would have been a little bit fancier.
You know, there is a cheaper form of Kapton.
A cheaper form of Kapton?
Yeah, you rip up a Post-it note.
Oh. There we go. I think that that's a little bit better. Though that one is still, yeah, I still have one side, and I think it's just because maybe it is not, its leg is not taped quite as well. It's just like a little bit flaky. Oh no, that's, both of them are out there, so that was due to a short somewhere else.
Okay, in summary, I would not use this for a product.
Well, I would say, like, the nice thing about the chibi stuff is that they've sort of like planned out their circuit in a way where you're shorting it where you want to short it, like where the switch is, and folding it, making contact where the battery is, but you're not shorting it where you don't want to be. So I think if it was like planned out a little bit better, and maybe if you apply the tape before you do the final folds, that would be not a bad product. There we go.
No, the Chibitronic stuff is fun.
Yeah. Okay, so that is just, okay, got it. That's just not making good contact now. It's like too much contact, not enough contact. Yeah, I feel like I need like a little more pressure than just tape can provide in order to keep the battery lit.
Briefly, they were on, both of them.
Oh, I don't have any right here, but I think like a tiny paper clip would totally help, because that, well, maybe. As long as there's paper insulating it. Yeah. I was going to say like a paper clip around the battery would work, but as long as you were just contacting the paper on either side of like the little battery pouch, essentially. Oh no, I might have folded it too much now.
The copper tape or the origami?
Both. I think. Let's see. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, my LEDs are not sticking very well. That's what's happening. I'm having LED leg failure. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to try. Like, I'm wondering if that paint can actually sort of serve as like a little bit of a glue.
Yeah, I bet it can.
Yeah, to really kind of like get it down there. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Back in business again. Yeah, but it just needs, like, every time I let it go, it's just, so yeah, it definitely needs a little bit more pressure, constant pressure on the battery contacts, but not too bad. Not bad for a first effort, for sure. Cool.
Well, thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you. Time flew. Conductive Z tape on the chibi stickers, says Snaky Maker Cat. Interesting. So like, yeah, conductive in thickness as well. I would imagine, since it's all, it's all the woven material.
Even their old stuff. I mean, it was I remember talking to, I don't know whether it was Bunny or G. I think that's her name.
Mm-hmm.
about how hard it was to get the right adhesives.
Yeah. I'll bet. But yeah, I like the fabric. The fabric tape was it was nice to work with because it didn't break as easily as the regular copper tape, which is just, foil and easy to tear. So I could fold it really well, and it would like keep its structure. It requires scissors to cut. You can't really break it with your hands, but I would say that's
not a bad thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And
thank you so much for having me.
Yes. What is next for embedded.fm? What's coming up?
This afternoon, we're going to be releasing a show with Carl Bougeye, which is about origami.
Awesome. Perfect.
He makes these little motors. They're board actuators. So he prints like a spiral onto a flex circuit, and then with a magnet, he can make it flap back and forth. Nice. He's got these little origami birds that flap and dog ears that flap. But the whole making actuators out of PCB is what we really talked about.
Nice.
It's got a self-soldering circuit. That's pretty cool.
What? All right, I definitely have to listen to get the scoop on that.
He had the ground planes that he turned into, like, before you use the board, you can plug them into something and it made them heat up. I mean, when you have squiggly lines and it creates resistance and it heats up, and if you're trying to figure out how heaters work, you can put it inside your board, and then your board heats up and solders itself. What could possibly go wrong with that?
That's pretty rad. That is pretty rad. Cool. Awesome.
So that'll be up today.
Excellent. Well, everybody check out embedded.fm. It's their weekly podcast. Always have interesting people on and a variety of interesting topics. So thank you so much for coming on, and see everybody else later.
Bye.
Bye. This is the awkward part while I click the buttons.